The complete sound of the Buddhas is equal to the world's. Sentient beings each obtain understanding according to their kind, yet there is no difference in the sound. Such is the understanding of the Brahma King, universal sound. Of the sublime sounds and voices in the world, none can compare to the Buddha's sound. The Buddha pervades the 10 directions with a single sound. Entering this liberation is the master of adornment. Now, the master of adornment might be called master of adornment, and master of adornment is a comrade of the Brahma King universal sound. These are two bodhisattvas who have come to be present at the awakening of Buddha. I'll tell you a little bit more about this. These quotes are from Book 1 of the Avatamsaka Sutra, the great flower adornment scripture. And Book 1 is entitled The Wonderful Adornments of the Leaders of the World. I want to talk about Book 1 today with an emphasis on something that Book 1 covers in some detail: finding the door of liberation. In our meal chants during retreats, sesshin, one-day sitting, at the very beginning we chant, Buddha was born in Kapilavastu, enlightened in Magadha, taught in Varanasi, entered Nirvana in Kushinagra. Now we set out Buddha's bowls. May we, with all beings, realize the emptiness of the three wheels, giver, receiver, and gift. We have just, at that point, we've just invoked Buddha by telling an abbreviated biography of Buddha. And we have also stated that we're going to open Buddha's bowls and we're going to eat our lunch from Buddha's bowls. And practice eating our lunch while occupying the seat of Buddha using Buddha's bowls. So that verse says Buddha was enlightened in Magadha. Magadha is the setting for Book 1 of the Avatamsaka Sutra. And millions and billions and zillions of bodhisattvas have arrived in Magadha to be present for the awakening of Buddha. That's pretty much Book 1. It's all about, it's 100 pages of bodhisattvas, of lots and lots of bodhisattvas arriving and being present for the awakening of Buddha. And all the bodhisattvas are awakened simultaneously with Buddha. But the way it's written, we get to find out about that actually before Buddha has his main part in this. And all of them, as I say, all of them are awakened. All of them, imbued with the spiritual power of Buddha, all embrace the entire cosmos in a single thought. if you read this sutra and it tells a little bit about the Buddha at the beginning of book 1, but the fully developed part is yet to appear. It's kind of like in book 2, but there are lots and lots of these bodhisattvas, and each one of them has a story. And it goes on and on and on for page after page after page. And it does this thing, to me anyway, to my ear and my mind, when I read it, sit there and read this about all these bodhisattvas, I kind of get lost. I kind of get a little bit relaxed. And I kind of started wondering, well, like, what am I doing here? It's kind of told in the third person, but it's like so immersive that I feel like I'm one of these beings in this sangha, in this assembly. The title of the book is The Wonderful Adornments of the Leaders of the Worlds. Well, what are the adornments of the leaders of the worlds? First of all, there's all these leaders of the worlds. There are 39 groups of leaders of the worlds that are mentioned here. There also happen to be 39 books in the Avatamsaka Sutra. And let's learn a little bit about them. What are the wonderful adornments of them? They all have names, and they all belong to these groups. And the groups have names. And the names of some of the groups are thunderbolt-bearing spirits, multiple body spirits, earth spirits, river spirits, titan monarchs, naga monarchs, celestial monarchs. And there are many different kinds of celestial monarchs, just to name a few of the names of the groups. And each group is composed of members of that group, obviously, and each member has a name. And just the character of some of these names: supreme vision, light of intellect sown with virtue, universal sound array banner, delightful great knowledge, power to smash high mountains, lion guts, unbreakable jewel top knot. Each one of them is introduced. About 10 pages in, a bodhisattva who's one of the leaders of the groups of leaders begins to speak. And he introduces the bodhisattvas in his group, or her group, their group, by telling something about the understanding of each bodhisattva, and then telling something about how that bodhisattva found the door of liberation. So I'll add a couple more names, the names that I just mentioned earlier. Universal Sound is one of those bodhisattvas, and Master of Adornment is another one of those bodhisattvas. So how do these introductions take place? One leader of the leaders of a group of bodhisattvas stands up and says something like, "The store of blessings of all sentient beings in all times, as well as enlightening beings, all appear in the Buddha's pores. Adornment of blessings, seeing this, rejoices." Adornment of blessings is one of the names of the bodhisattvas. Here's another example. His vast state of serene absorption is unborn, unperishable, has no coming or going, yet he purifies lands to show sentient beings. This is the liberation of flowered tree. And then, after a lot of those, the same bodhisattva who's been speaking switches to prose, and he goes back down the list of these bodhisattvas, and they tell how each one of these bodhisattvas found the door of liberation. The earth spirit, pure flower of universal virtue, found the door of liberation, constantly watching all beings with an attitude of kindness and compassion. The earth spirit, adornment of stable blessings, found the door of liberation, manifesting the power of blessings and virtues of all sentient beings. The earth spirit, beautiful flower, adorned tree, found the door of liberation, entering into all things and producing adornment for all Buddha fields. So as I say, this kind of an introduction, giving the name, giving some kind of statement about that bodhisattva's understanding, and then telling how they found the door of liberation, happens for each group, and there are many bodhisattvas in each group, and there are 39 groups. It goes on for about 70 pages like this. And it's very repetitive, and kind of the structure of it is kind of musical. It has verse and chorus like a piece of music. If I listen to that, I'm thinking, somewhere in 30 or 40 pages in, I'm thinking, well, why am I listening to this? You know, this sounds like, how do I participate in this? And I kind of feel like I'm participating by relaxing into it and being present for it and being included in it. And then if I really pay attention, I notice that the speaker or the writer or the narrator or whoever is coming up with all of these words is actually kind of winking and smiling at me because of the way it's done. I noticed that each bodhisattva is mentioned 2 or 3 times, and sometimes the second time that bodhisattva's name is mentioned, it's like a shortened version. It's kind of like a nickname. And it makes me want to go back and say, now, who was that? Oh, well, it's kind of a funny little nickname. You shorten flower adornment light banner to light banner or something like that, you know? And it's kind of a really nice human touch. So I start to feel this kinship, like I gotta really pay attention to this, because there may be some little jokes in here or something that I want to know. And then another time, I might notice that there's a particular bodhisattva who seems to be a member of more than one group, or there are 2 bodhisattvas, each a member of one group, and they have the same name, or something like that. But there's one bodhisattva, I can't say their name right now, that appears 3 times as a member of 2 groups. And so I wonder, well, did that bodhisattva actually find the door of liberation 3 times? Or is it different people, or what's going on here? It gets to be kind of interesting. And I just relax into it and enjoy it. Also, one thing that appears is that these doors of liberation have a lot of variety. Some of them are very celestial. The store of blessings of all sentient beings in all times, as well as enlightening beings, all appear in the Buddha's pores. Adornment of blessings, seeing this rejoices. Then there's another case of another bodhisattva who, I meant to say something about finding the door of liberation. So let me see if I could find one of those real quick. The earth spirit, pure flower of universal virtue, found the door of liberation, constantly watching all beings with an attitude of kindness and compassion. That sounds wonderful. There's another bodhisattva in here who found the door of liberation by taking care of the garden and making sure that the seeds and shoots of plants in the garden are well taken care of, and that other people know how to take care of them, so that the lineage of the garden itself can be perpetuated. That's that bodhisattva's door of liberation. So it's just like the sound of the Buddha. It's the same sound, but each person receives it in a different way. Each person can receive it, can find the door of liberation in some activity or understanding that applies to their own case, their own individual case. So, what is this door of liberation that all of these beings have found? It tells about the door of liberation that each one of them has found. And those aren't the only ones. Each one of us probably has our own. That door outside might be the door of liberation. For somebody specifically today, the Bodhisattva precepts receiving ceremony might be a door of liberation for some people today. Anything that happens to somebody during their daily course of activities might be the door of liberation. At the end of this talk, we're going to probably chant something about Dharma gates being boundless, and they are. And this book, one of the Avatamsaka Sutras, seeks to demonstrate that in about 100 pages. I mean, it is bounded by 100 pages, but it does go on pretty long. And I think the intent is to show that it's boundless. What is that door of liberation? A door of liberation might be a pivot point in one's understanding. It might be the end of suffering. Classically, it's the end of suffering. It's a meaningful passage for someone, which might seem like a marker of their understanding or some arrival at a new point of understanding. And I think many people, most people, have stories like that in their own history that they would consider to be doors of liberation. It says in this sutra, so-and-so bodhisattva found the door of liberation. And it may be that door of liberation for that bodhisattva is the one most important one. But these doors of liberation, these Dharma gates, are boundless. And one's practice might be considered to be a process, an ongoing process of finding the door of liberation in whatever activity. Sometimes they're transformative and glorious. Sometimes they may be rather neutral yet puzzling. Sometimes they may be something that happens in the midst of what seems like an abject crisis. And that might take the form of someone suddenly recognizing an important truth about what's going on at that moment that seems to go above and beyond what the crisis seems to be. My name is Peaceful Forest. And I haven't checked this out, but I think I know why. At least I know enough about, at least I have this idea that I might want to ask about, and I haven't thought too much about it in the past, but in preparation for this, I recalled it. And some of you may have heard this story. Many years ago, when my family was young, much younger than now, children were about in the range of 3 to 7 years old, or 3 to 6 years old, something like that. And one Saturday afternoon, we went to the Museum of Fine Arts, and we visited the museum, and then we came out of the museum and we were walking down the sidewalk on Main Street. Somehow, I can't figure out how we got on Main Street, but that's where we were. And my son had a meltdown. He was like really, I think he was really hungry. And he couldn't handle it anymore. He was tapped out. And he went down, sobbing violently and thrashing onto the sidewalk. And the other members of the family were walking on ahead, and I had this young person here wriggling around on the sidewalk, thrashing and screaming, and I didn't know what to do. And I didn't feel like it would be a good idea to pick him up or try to pick him up. So I got down on the ground with him, and he was lying down and looking up. So I did the same thing, and I lay down right beside him, and I just I didn't know what to do. I thought, well, if I'm next to him, it's probably better than if I'm standing up, telling him to get up. So that's what I did, and I lay there, and after a while he started to quiet down, like he relaxed a little bit, and I said, I didn't know what to say, but I was lying there looking up, and above me was this canopy of trees, and I sat there and I looked at and I said, the trees, looks nice, doesn't it? And he said, yeah, like that. And then we lay there for a few more minutes, and then I said, do you think you're ready to go now? And he said, yeah. And we got up and we walked on. That was a door of liberation. And I could say it was a door of liberation for me. It's something I kind of recognized as being that. It was a transformative experience of being in a position where I felt like I was able to help somebody without imposing something upon them. And I think it was a door of liberation for him, because he got the he got a little reset button there somehow, and it ended up being positive. And I don't know about the rest of the family; they were ready to go. It's probably good for them too. But that was a memorable experience. Very briefly, another one. In the early days of the Houston Zen Center, when our temple was down the street at 1244 Heights Boulevard, there was a morning meditation period where I don't remember how many people were there, but there were not very many of them. And there may have been a do-on, and there may not have been a do-on. I don't remember. And I remember that I was there, and Galen Roshi was there, and I think it was at the end of walking meditation period, and the clacker sounded, and we walked back to our seats, and there must have been a dawn because the bell sounded. I remember it now, and we were standing in front of our seats like this, and it's time to sit down and meditate. Zazen, another period. It's time to sit down. And the bell rang. I was standing there. Galen Roshi was standing there. And Galen Roshi didn't sit down. Do you remember that?
Not yet.
Okay. I didn't know what to do. I had a decision to make. Because I wanted to do the right thing. You know, people who come here tend to want to do the right thing. Have you noticed? So I wanted to do the right thing, but I didn't have any, at that point I didn't really have any basis for knowing what the right thing was. So I was kind of standing on my own 2 feet. And actually, to tell the truth, I don't remember what I did, but I think I probably sat down. And after that, I don't know what happened to Galen Roshi because I'd already made my decision and it was too late to stand up again, I thought. So time went on and I don't remember. It sort of like almost didn't come up, but I think I said something about, you know, I didn't know what to do I didn't know what to do there. There were about 3 seconds that seemed like about an hour and a half, and I didn't know what to do, but I finally sat down. And that also was a door of liberation. Because I don't know the right way to say this, I was disabused of a certain kind of knowledge about what should happen, and I was put in a position of analyzing that position using whatever tools I could come up with, which were basically this body and mind, without any other recourse. So it was an experience of growth in that instant that has stayed with me all this time. And I don't know why it happened. I don't know whether it was intended as a teaching, but whether or not it was intended as a teaching, it was a very strong teaching. Those are just 2 examples. I think finding the door of liberation is for everyone. And it might be a large door, it might be a small door, it might be something that one encounters in passing, it might be something that changes one's life. And one thing that struck a chord for me this morning in the chanting of the Genjo Koan was this idea that we should be, you know, we receive a suggestion and an encouragement from Genjo Koan in that Dogen Zenji says, Buddhas may not necessarily notice that they are Buddhas. And so in the realm of being exposed to the possibility of finding the door of liberation, we should be open-minded and open-hearted, and even if we don't seem to recognize that we are of the nature of Buddha, we can rest comfortably knowing that we may be so even without realizing it.